everyone, and welcome back to the Brian Book Club, the podcast where we take, usually it's horror genre like books, media like that, and kind of talk about how it can be inspired in your role-playing games. But we're kind of doing something different today, is we're going to be talking about perhaps my favorite show ever. But before we delve into it, I want to introduce today's co-host. His name is Craig. You know him from, and I hate doing this for like everyone, but like, you're kind of one of the newer ones, so where they can find you at. He's ran 2 Call of Cthulhu one-shots, Cold Harvest and My Little Sister Will Make You Suffer for our Twin Cities by Night podcast. And he also plays, he played in the Scion one-shot that we did for Onyx Path Publishing. And he also currently plays in the Chronicles of Darkness Inferno game called Temptation, along with me. Hello, Craig. How you doing, brother?
Hello, everyone. I'm doing well. And yourself?
Good. It's a early morning. We usually record a little later, but I feel fired up and I'm ready to go. So what are we going to be talking about today? The show we are going to be talking about, the absolute fucking holy grail. Anyone who knows me, who has known me longer than fucking 10 minutes, knows this is my absolute favorite fucking show ever, True Detective Season 1. So before we go on, I just want to warn, there might be some spoilers. I don't think we'll get too spoiler heavy with it, but there might be some. Feel free to listen to it, though. Listen to this if you haven't, because maybe you want to watch it, and I hope you want to watch it because I get a royalty check every time someone watches it after I talk about it. I'm joking.
Well, season 1's been out for like 5 years now, so if you haven't seen it, the expiration date has passed.
Yeah, and like that's another thing. Like, when are these? Like, the spoiler rules really frustrating because I don't know when the expiration date is. I don't know. Like, you can't talk about shit on Facebook, or your friends will unfriend you, dude. If it's when I'm like, okay, I had someone literally come up to me at the gym. And she was like, I'm about to defriend you because you talk about Game of Thrones and I'm only on season like 5. And this is when the last season was airing. I'm like, sorry, I don't know what to tell you, dude. Like, it's been out for a while. But anyway, so what is True Detective? Well, I'm going to tell you all a real quick story about how I actually got into it, which was by accident. At the time, that came out in 2014, January 2014. But I remember seeing ads for it. And I wasn't sure what it was because I usually will give an HBO show at least one chance. I'll watch the first episode of any HBO show because I'm a huge fan of what they do. And usually I'll set it like on my, back then I would set it on my DVR so I could just record it and like check it out. And I remember seeing these commercials just showing the 2 actors who play in the show, Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, just driving like in a car. And it was just like True Detective. And that's all it said. And I'm like, is this like a spinoff of True Blood? I think at that point I kind of had given up on True Blood. It just got like a little corny for me, but I was like, well, I'll give it a shot. And I set up my DVR to watch. And I remember I watched the first episode of that show and I was just like fucking blown away. And I remember going to work and telling people, you got to watch the show. You got to watch the show. You got to watch the show. And it wasn't because of me saying this, but like 2 or 3 episodes in, all of a sudden everyone at my fucking job is talking about this show. And then all of a sudden you start reading online and like because it's an 8-episode show, like by the 5th or 6th episode, people have all these fucking crazy theories. And the show was so hot at the time that it came out that when the 8th episode was released, HBO's brand new service, HBO Go, that they had at the time crashed because so many people were logging in to watch that season finale when it came on, and they couldn't handle the traffic. So it was that impactful at that time for a lot of people. Now, when did you first discover it? With your story?
So, I first discovered it in Afghanistan. Actually, not sure if I don't really talk about my history a lot, but I was in Afghanistan for various reasons, and it was like you had to walk to a building across the area I was in. It took you 10 minutes to walk there, 10 minutes back, and all day to download anything. Be it like a podcast. I was really into podcasts at the time, music or whatever. And I was listening to this podcast at the time, Ken and Robin talk about stuff, and they did a segment on True Detective. And the reason why it was mentioned on there it's the show's fixation with like Chambers, King in Yellow, and Yellow King horror mythology. But so they did a deep dive into it, and the show was pretty much over by the time I actually got around to it. But there was always like this thing in the back of my mind. I'm like, oh, wow, it's a detective story. And then smack dab in the middle of it, oh my gosh, it turned into basically a Hastur Cthulhu mythos story. And I'm like, this is right up my alley. So as soon as I get a chance, I'm going to get to flash forward several months later, and I pretty much binge watched the whole thing in a day.
Holy shit! Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned like okay, so to kind of dive into what the show is, you kind of hinted at it a little bit there. The show basically tells a tale in three different time periods, and real quick to kind of even back up a little bit, the writer of True Detective, and I'm gonna butcher his name, and I always butcher his name, Nick Pizzolatto, is the gentleman who wrote it, and the show actually had one director who directed it the whole time. And his name was Corey Fukunaga. And I'm horrible at names, so apologize. And for people who might not know, a lot of TV shows have multiple directors who do like different episodes or whatever. This show had all the same director and all the same writer. So it was almost like an 8-hour movie, especially with the fact that you had two big name Hollywood stars, Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, who were in this movie. So the whole premise of this movie, and it kind of ties to what Nick Pizzolatto's old show was almost like. He had a show he worked on called The Killing that was on AMC for like 2 seasons, and then Netflix bought it for a 3rd season, I believe. It was a decent show. It wasn't like a show where like I'm gonna like, oh my god, it was great. It was a remake of a Swedish show, I want to believe, but it kind of told the tale of two detectives. And so True Detective is kind of in its heart that story about two cops, but it's much more, and it has this very, it's almost like and you kind of hinted at it earlier when you talk about Chambers, King in Yellow, and the whole Cthulhu vibe. When people when you hear us say that it has that vibe, it's not upfront. It's not like in your face.
Yeah. It is
like,
very subtle, and
very
they don't.
subtle. Go ahead.
Yeah. They don't really treat the audience like idiots and try to just like blast it right in their face. They just let you discover it. The storytelling of the show is really what pulled me in. They kind of like break it up into like 3 different segments. You come in and it's like 95 when there was a big investigation, 2002 when there's the fallout of another investigation, and when they're actually completing an investigation, and 2012, which is reopening the case and them looking into it, and other agents are looking into it as well. But we'll build to that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So the story, like these two detectives are like the main focus. And this is what I like about the show, and the fact that, and it really, I tell people all the time that without this show, there would be no Twin Cities by Night, because this is like what inspired me to even like want to share my stuff. It inspired me to even the story or the tone or the theme I was going for in our Vampire the Masquerade story, or even the Ultimate Evil Chronicles of Darkness story. But what I like about it is a very character driven show, because it's almost like you have these two detectives, and that's what the story's about, is those characters, and everything is a very subtle backdrop to it. And what I mean by that is, I think the thing that made me enjoy this show so much was the fact that I found elements of both of these characters. I found elements of myself in both of these characters that I saw. And especially in the fact that not only are you shown these two characters and their personalities, you're shown it as their personalities involved, like many people do. Like Craig pointed out, in 95 to 2002 to then to like the current modern day, you're given 3 different distinct time periods with these two characters and the changes that they have gone through. So you see this journey of self-discovery, of pain, of loss, of realization. It's such a beautifully done thing. And I think like by far I enjoyed the murder, subtle horror, all that aspect. But without that very character driven element to the story, I think it wouldn't have been as good. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. The characters are important. Let's talk about those characters. We've yet to introduce them.
Yeah.
So we have 2 real well-known actors, Matthew McConaughey playing Detective Russ Cole, and we have Woody Harrelson playing Detective Marty Hart. And in my mind, True Detective is really what resuscitated the careers of these 2 actors. But Russ Cole, Matthew McConaughey's character, he's sort of like a nihilistic guy, and it's really going against type for pretty much any role Matthew McConaughey has ever played up to now. Like basically you saw him as like the love interest, or like
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
But to see him really flexing his acting muscles here, it's great, because like he's that guy who has a really unstructured past. He grew up in Alaska, spent some time in Texas, narco operations with the police force down there, deep cover. And then he got into Louisiana's police, like criminal murder investigations. And then we got Woody Harrelson playing Detective Marty Hart, and he's portrayed as basically the antithesis of Russ Cole. He's a family man with many faults, but he's a team player. He's well liked in on the floor of the detective or the detective precinct that they're in, police precinct, and he's very much an everyman cop. And then he gets a new partner, Russ Cole, and the two kind of clash and butt heads. And their first case together turns into an occult murder.
Yeah, for sure. And both these characters, they're so nuanced. Like with Rust, he's a nihilist because like his daughter got killed, his 2-year-old daughter got killed in a car accident, his marriage fell apart. When he was doing deep undercover narco, he got addicted to drugs and he almost got killed, and he spent time in a mental hospital. When he got out, he could have gotten a mental health pension. Instead, he decided he wanted to work homicide, so he goes to New Orleans, which he considers like the armpit of the world. He has a lot of sensory issues because of the drug use he has. So, which is at least one thing, and I'll digress a little bit later. But he has a lot of these impactful lines. There's a lot of good scenes where him and Marty are in a car, and there's one scene that's really hilarious because, like you said, Marty's kind of like salt of the earth, raised in Louisiana, quote unquote normal cop. He's trying to talk to Russ because Russ keeps bringing up religion or talking about like how shitty the area is, and he's like, well, what religion are you? And he's like, I'm not religious. He's like, you're not? Then what would you call yourself? He's like, I call myself a pessimist. And he's like, what does that mean? And he's like, it means I'm not good at parties. Like, well, I hate to tell you, Russ, you're not good at anything, really. and it's just like these lines that they have, but you get this really like balance of this total like depressive observation to like the reality of the situation brought by Marty, and it kind of like really balances each other out. One thing that people often debate, because we talk about how later on the show, and I don't want to dive too into it, but about the character of Marty, is the fact is one debatable thing is, are the things that he's saying or he maybe sometimes sees, because he has these really once in a while these weird sensory visions kind of a couple times during it. Not
this
like
is the Russ, not Marty.
Yeah, Rust, excuse me. He has like real sensory visions, like he's super negative. He thinks it's because of this damage that he took because all the drugs he did while undercover. And there's often debate in I guess the fan base of True Detective of whether or not like these slight visions he may be having are supernatural based or are they drug induced, because the show never comes out and really says straight up that there's like a supernatural zing to it, right?
Right. I mean, at one point, Russ is dating this one doctor girl, and they all sit down to dinner, and he's basically describing synesthesia. Had a little bit of experience knowing people with this, but they could taste sound, hear colors, different sounds have certain synchronistic like pairings with them. One thing that was recurring is whenever Rust would notice something supernatural, he'd always say, it tastes like ash and aluminum.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something very particular to him.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And so one thing about these two characters that you see too is that they're very flawed characters, both in their own ways, and both try to justify their flaws by saying that they're these great people. And they are, in the end, I believe, like good people, like they made mistakes in life, just like a lot of people make mistakes in life, and people aren't perfect, but you really see like it's a tragic story about not only about this murder that they're looking into, but a self realization that they both have. And so to kind of tie a little bit into like role-playing games, and I think we can kind of take different chunks of this show and then like talk about what we're about to talk about rather than wait to the end. But one thing that I really feel that I try to take away, at least from when I run games, is the fact that everything else should be a backdrop and the focus should be on the characters. The show does a brilliant job where it has people debating if this is like you're going to see some Cthulhu tentacle monster come out of a swamp, or like there's a lot of debate. We'll get into that later on, but really in the end, the focus of that story is Rust and Marty and the journey that they take together and how all this stuff dramatically affects them. And one thing that I definitely try to do, and thankfully I'm blessed with like good players who play in these games who I think share the vision, is the fact that these two are exposed to stuff that normal people aren't exposed, and you see how it affects their life. And that is one thing that I try to do in the games is, for example, like with Vampire the Masquerade, you have all this plot, all this meta plot. You got clan politics. You got like, I mean, books up the wazoo about different elements of this setting, but you can easily lose the story in that setting. What do I mean by that? Well, the stories are made by characters and their desires and their motivations and their drive and how they react. And if you just spend hours focusing on some Methuselah that wakes up and how they're related to Cain and who blah 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 and all, like answering all these meta questions, you're going to lose the characters in that. And I think that why I say there would be no Twin Cities by Night if there wasn't True Detective is because I think watching that show, I really loved how the characters were the focus, and that led me to that's how I wanted to run, stuff that I run on our channel, especially like the Ultimate Evil. I think the Ultimate Evil in a weird way was like my homage to True Detective a little bit, like that I wanted normal people who were affected by abnormal shit, you know what I mean? And it was like, and try to tell a real story in it. And I feel that that's what this does. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are, like you said, games are run by the characters, and if we're treating True Detective like a game, Marty and Russ are the player characters. They're the PCs, and I have a question for you, Chris. If there are like Chronicles of Darkness characters, what do you think that their, let's say, vices and virtues might be?
Oh wow. I would say, oh man, I would say virtue for Marty would probably be a hope, and I think that virtue for Rust would probably be justice, and then I would say vice for Marty would be lust, and I would say vice for Rust would probably be, I'd say, wrath, maybe. You know what I mean? Like just how anger consumed he gets with everything and how he wants to like solve this case, which we'll dive into a little bit definitely. I mean, I'm surprised you never picked it up, but I mean, it's not like it's funny how many homage hints that I leave. And the in Ultimate Evil, the truck stop worker, her name was Dora Lang, like after the chick, the victim, and True Detective. So I throw like these little like I'm like surprised. I was like, wait a second, you unoriginal motherfucker. You know what I mean? But like the whole truck stop scene, you know what I mean, and all that shit. Like I just that was totally homage to True Detective, man, for sure.
Yeah, and actually, I think one of our first conversations back when I was just Twin Cities by Night underground fanboy
Listener.
was yeah, potato tomato. But I'm like, hey, was the whole party scene at the end of Negligence was that inspired by season 2 at all?
Yep, it
Granted, we're not
was.
talking about season 2, but
Yeah,
since we're
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about pulling elements from games,
Yeah, for sure. Season two, a lot of actually season two was inspiration, and I was watching season two at the time when Negligence was happening. So that like a lot of that stuff was impacted. That and Eyes Wide Shut for sure. So what is the case that these two are investigating? So let's delve into a little bit like what's important about that.
So when we first meet our characters, it's basically their first day on the job together, and they're brought together in this first long car ride that you mentioned earlier, having their nihilistic discussions, and they come upon this big tree in the middle of nowhere. There's the local police have already secured the area, and since they're state detectives, they're coming in to take over the investigation, and they find this basically staged occult scene where this naked woman is wearing like a crown with antlers on it. She's tied up, wrist bound, and basically put down in some sort of like supplicant worshiping position to the tree. And there's some iconography painted on her back. It looks like a big spiral,
Mhm.
and there's these like wooden stick things. They look like
Bird
basically
catchers?
like twigs tied. Yeah, they
Yeah.
kind of look
Like,
like bird captors or devil snares.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I think
yeah,
there's a certain changeling thing that kind of drew inspiration from them on the channel. But
yeah. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, so they discover the scene and start going off this investigation that basically,
Leads them to like some less
yeah,
scrupulous elements, right? Like they kind of like because they find in her system she has LSD and meth, and they start talking to like her ex in prison, and they start like, dude, we don't want to ruin too much. Like, how did they come to these conclusions? Because it's really fucking awesome how some of the
yeah,
shit is found out. But in the end, they find out. This is, by the way, 1995. This is the first time that they're taking a stab at this mystery, and they kind of ties back to these two drug dealers One, his name is Remy Ledoux, and the other, I forgot his partner's name. He really doesn't play that big of a part, but you start seeing when they start figuring out this Remy Ledoux guy might be the person that killed her, because you realize there's a point where he's cellmates with her ex-husband, and the cellmate talks about this dude and the shit that he's talking about, and she's like, yeah, he makes really good chemical shit, gets you fucked up, but like he starts rambling on this like trippy like shit about like groups
KKL
of
and Carcosa.
yeah, taking people to this place called Carcosa, like these groups of powerful people who devil worship and kill each other or kill kids and everything. And then he mentions how one thing that I noticed, by the way, because fans rewatch the show constantly, and I noticed the last time I rewatched it before we did this, where he was talking about a term in prison where he had short eyes, and that means that like someone's a pedophile, and he basically says that he felt that this dude Remy LaCroix had short eyes, and that's a thing, but he would never tell anyone in that prison. But when he'd get fucked up, he would kind of hint at his cellie. So they have this really intense scene. Again, I don't want to spoil too much, but where they find these two people, and they also find this U-Haul trailer, really fucked up scene where there's like this little girl and this dead little boy in there, and it's not too like it leaves, which is another good thing, which we'll talk about the strength of the show. It doesn't get too graphic in what it shows you. It leaves it to your imagination, and basically the killer, who they thought the killer is at the time, died. He gets killed, and so they think that this case is solved.
Case closed. They're big
Case
heroes
closed.
now.
Yeah, they're big fucking heroes, dude. They
Makes all the local papers, and the institution is has them as their poster boys for a while, because another theme of the show is the corruption within the institution and who's actually trying to cover up. We realize in these later years, in the 2002 and 2012 investigations, that hey, they think that they may not, at least Rust and at least Rust does. He thinks that, hey, we probably didn't get the guy, and Marty's all okay to let it lie. They're big heroes, case shut. And Rust actually gets in trouble a lot in like the 2002 storyline, where he's like reaching back and looking into the case. He gets suspended from the force for actually being insubordinate and misusing police funds to justify going in and looking at this whole case again.
He in that what happens in 2002, he's kind of, they like like Craig said, they are heroes. The Rust actually stops becoming a nihilist and is like starting to become normal, has a relationship, they're all happy. Rust, who's kind of like not the best husband, or Marty, who's not the best husband, is happily back in his marriage, and everything's good. And then just one little thing said in a police interview makes Rust realize, wait a second, there's a lot more to that case we solved. And one thing that I like about this case is, and it kind of ties even back to that spiral symbol that they show on Dora Lang when she first got killed. That's the first victim back in 95. Is in conspiracy circles, that's considered a sign of like pedophilia rings. It's like a sign that like pedophilia rings leave for each other. And one thing that I like that Nick Pizzolatto did with the show is he took like large ranging conspiracy theories and he made them into fiction, which is like a really awesome thing to do for like World of Darkness games. Because it was funny, I was joking with the gang about how when I was getting ready for Ultimate Evil, I was ordering on Amazon all these conspiracy theory books, and I was like, I didn't put them on my bookshelf. I kind of hid them on the side because I didn't want someone to come into my house and be like, looking like, oh, nice book collection. And be like, oh, guys, see all these books I had that I was reading, because they provide good inspiration for stories. And that's what happened with this, is that basically Rust comes to find that like there's huge tentacles of corruption and this big like satanic slash like Yellow King ring that is
metaphorical
going on.
Tentacles.
Yeah, metaphorical tentacles. Yeah, excuse me. That like go from like a huge religious figure to maybe even like people in the police force. He gets paranoid, and he does a really good job to where he goes from vanillist to like normal to like paranoid. He like, you never hear him say during that whole 2002 block any of that shit that he said in 95, like, like the world, the universe is a ghetto, man. He's like, in 2002, he's like wrathful. He's like obsessed about like he's going to like think of a big mega church. He literally went to a big mega church dude and was like kind of subtly like accusing him of knowing about missing children and all this shit. So this guy was definitely being insubordinate because his bosses were telling him don't do it. And then the whole time you have Marty, who's sitting there like their relationship's just getting further apart, because Russ is treating Marty like an idiot because Marty's not jumping head first into the issue, you know? And that's one misconception I think some people have the shows like Marty's an idiot, you know, like Matthew McConaughey, Rust, he's the smart one. He sees the big picture, and Marty's just this dumbass. Where I think Marty's actually has a more grounded approach of doing shit. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah,
can't.
they both put dots and investigation on their sheets.
Yeah, you can't. You know, Marty's like, you can't go to the head of a major church and be like, I know you're part of a child pedophilia ring. That doesn't work. You know what I mean? You got to be more subtle than that. So
You gotta take your time. You gotta build your case.
yeah. So it's like this, it's this really nice dichotomy. And this whole time you start seeing the show does a really good job of, you start in that second time frame, you start seeing that like, holy shit, there might be this huge fucked up thing going on. They start talking about like the conspiracy theories about kids who are molested in daycares, which was a big thing in the 80s, which ended up being not true. But like a lot of people were accused of doing that in the 80s. I have a book about that called Michelle Remembers that specifically I bought for The Ultimate Evil because seeing shit in True Detective and doing research where all these ideas came from. You know, you start seeing a lot of these like elements that they start, but they don't do it in like a very overt way, which is beautifully done. They do it in this really subtle, creepy, like horror way. You know what I mean? Like it's so weird.
And in the words of the author, they illuminate things, they don't explain them.
Yes, that's exactly it. They illuminate them and don't explain them. So you have where there's a big falling out. I don't want to say why, but there's a falling out in 2002 that pretty much leads it. And it's very sad because you're like, you start seeing this tension between Rust and Marty, and it's just fucking like heartbreaking. And you realize like Marty's going through some midlife crisis shit. Yeah, Rust is losing his mind. Like, you know, goes from this, like I said, this super depresso to like this rabid, like fanatic about finding the shit. And there's this climatic moment where they just fucking have this huge fight. And the really fuck it, so such a sad scene where he throws, you realize later, but where like Marty throws Rust into like Rust's pickup truck and breaks the back brake light on the truck,
left tail light,
back left tail light, and then fucking Rust like, I quit, and then they cut because during the show it's being narrated, part of it's being narrated because in 2015 Marty and Rust are being interviewed by two detectives in the same police force that they worked in. Marty at this point had retired and had like his own PI firm, and Rust, he had quit back in 2002 and moved to Alaska, and then just recently came back to New Orleans. So a lot of this story is being told while they're getting investigated, and it cuts to 2012 eventually, the modern day, and you see that scene where like, oh, it's so fucked up, dude, where like after the cops interview him and Marty's driving off, you know what I mean? And then Russ's truck is coming behind Marty, and Marty's not sure because he's like thinking his friend might be nuts because the cops are trying to imply that they think his friend's like responsible for these murders, you know what I mean? And all this shit. And you see like he was like, we need to have a beer. Like he stops, honks, and they pull over, and you see like Marty has his hand on the gun, wondering if he's going to trust this old friend of his. And then he's like, let's go have a beer. I buy. Then he turns around. He's like, wait, you might need a buy. I don't have money. And then he gets back in his truck and drives off. You see that taillight still broken after fucking like 10 years. Like
never bothered to fix it.
Like it was a reminder to him of the friendship they had. And you're like, oh my fucking God. It was like so fucking heartbreaking, dude. That show is so heartbreaking, man. It's such an emotional fucking roller coaster, you know, by far. I think each aspect of that show has like significance to me, but like that the last act, I guess you could call it, the last of the three acts where it goes to modern day, I think is so fucking well done, dude. So fucking well done, because you see these two men who are like in their 50s or late 40s or early 50s, and they're just like over the shit. They're over like the stupid petty bullshit. They are more driven and focused than they were ever driven before to get answers on something. And I don't know what your thoughts on it.
I mean, Rust was always, you know, since 2002 when he heard that there's more into this, he was always driven, and it took Marty some convincing, which I'm not going to spoil that, but he was able to convince them. Yeah.
What a scene. Dude, I'm not going to say what it is. I'm not going to spoil it, but I will tell you there is a scene in that show where it is absolutely masterful horror, and it's just like
it's implied too.
It's implied.
It doesn't have to be grotesque or anything about it.
Oh, God damn, dude.
The implication is way worse than anything you could have seen.
For sure. Exactly. So fucking well done. But continue. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
That was it. But I do want to circle back to what you've said about the symbols. You mentioned that there's that spiral symbol, that it was like a conspiracy symbol being like the spiral for pedophiles to recognize each other. But another interpretation that a lot of fans had was it's maybe the yellow sign, which in Chambers' fiction, at least like his horror fiction, he is much better known as a romance writer. But
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, but there's this thing called the yellow sign, and it's that and a few other aspects, and this is where we get into like some sort of like the later Lovecraft ideas that seeing and being exposed to some certain things can just literally drive you mad. I think in the show, especially with Cole, you get this sort of idea that the veil is being lifted in certain places, and he's able to kind of perceive into the supernatural a little bit. It's a sort of a theme that keeps popping up, and it takes a long time for Marty to get into it. But Cole, since 2002, he was been the veil was kind of lifted very suddenly for him, and we mentioned them as World of Darkness characters. I kind of think in this sort of vein, they're Cthulhu investigators, where they're like Cole suddenly lost a whole bunch of sanity points, and Marty's still trying to hang on to the fact that there's nothing wrong with the world, but Cole is basically diving headfirst into this conspiracy.
I agree with you. I think we can even kind of cut into how you can take that conspiracy stuff and use it in game. You mentioned Call of the Cthulhu, the losing of sanity. You know, I listened to a recent Joe Rogan episode clip with Steve-O. I know, right? These guys aren't like fucking scientists or whatever, but Steve-O actually said something because he no longer uses drugs, but he was talking about his drug use. I mean, dude, this dude made Ozzy Osbourne look like a preschooler with the shit he was doing. And when it comes to a story idea, and this is actually something I try to crack with some of my characters, and I think that is kind of implied how I view Rust, is the fact that Steve-O said like there's like 3 dimensions that we're all aware of, right? And that in Steve-O's opinion, this is not mine or whatever, that and Joe Rogan's, that there's others that we can't perceive, like our mind cannot perceive. But with the use of drugs and the overabundance use of drugs, sometimes your brain is able to perceive stuff that normally it wouldn't be able to perceive. So I kind of interpret that they're basically trying to say if you're tripping or you see something because of drugs, you could really be seeing something real that your brain normally couldn't perceive on the normal. And I think they kind of tie that a little bit because you see Russ trying to compartmentalize what he's seeing or what he's experiencing in the beginning as, oh, my brain is damaged from all the drugs I did and the mental trauma that I had with the death of my family and all this shit, when in all reality that could be interpreted as, well, now he's perceiving stuff that he normally wouldn't be able to perceive, like the smells, that weird symbol when the birds fly, and that spiral symbol that was on the body that he randomly saw. These little hints that he is supposed to be. I mean, there's even other hints in the game or in the story where people like kind of look at Rust and they're like, I see your eyes are dead. I'm going to put you down next time I see you. Or he's called
Little
Priest.
priest.
Yeah, little priest and shit like that. So it's like,
Come down with me.
yeah. And so it's like one thing that you can use that in a game, kind of 2 things, but one thing is you can do that slow descent of madness, and which is a really hard thing to do, or even like how explain how your character can know there's stuff out there. I try to do that in Hunter 2 with my Walter guy and like the drugs, and like he's always explaining, he's expanding his mind. And I'm sure in Cthulhu there's stuff like that too with the sanity.
Yeah, definitely. So this right here is a good way to explain how mechanics of a game really inform the genre. In Cthulhu, for instance, the more sanity you lose, the more crazy you get, the easier it is to lose more sanity, and you can very quickly fall off that mountain. But a cool mechanic of it is if the first time you go insane and any time after that, you get these things called Cthulhu Mythos skill points, where it starts at 0. It's the one skill you just can't have any starting ranks in, but as you get insane more and read more weird books and get exposed to more weird truths, that skill slowly goes up, and it gives you the chance to recognize the truth of what's going on. That may not be the best idea for your character as far as survivability, but it does tell a good story.
But no, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's what it's still debated to this day by a lot of people if True Detective, if it was a supernatural bent to it, because I'm not going to explain how it ends. I don't want to spoil the ending or whatever. Is it like a supernatural bent, or is it just like all just this weird conspiratorial bent or whatever? I think it's both. Me personally, I think that's what they're trying to go for. I mean, I can't put my mind in the writer's head, but that's how I interpret his art that he put forward, you know. I think though that one thing that I like, and I know I definitely steal this from True Detective. I mean, I'm sure it was a concept before True Detective, but I know True Detective inspired me for it, was the subtlety of everything. I love subtlety in games I run. I try to. I mean, there's some moments where there's like in your face moments, don't get me wrong, but those aren't True Detective too. There's very like, kind of moments. I'm talking about the overall plot. There's shit that I have, for example, that was in Twin Cities by Night Dread that will probably never be explained in game terms to people. You know what I mean? Unless like the characters do some deep diving or whatever. But there's NPCs who are there who people never probably know what clan they are unless they put two and two together. You know what I mean? Or know what they are or who they are or what they are. You know what I mean? But that game mechanic term for them. But the reason that I like the subtlety is because let the imagination do the work for you. Have people, your players, have people, if you're doing an actual play, listeners be like, what, who was that motherfucker? You know what I mean? What was that? Was he tied to this all? And leave those questions because, man, I mean, it's almost like letting other people do your work for you. Like, let them come up with their own story that you're providing, like it's an awesome feeling, dude. It really is though. But it's part of horror. Like you said, that one scene, again, we're not going to spoil it, but that one scene teases just enough and then lets your mind do the rest. And the reactions of the actors and all that shit, man, just makes it by far my favorite horror scene probably ever in anything that I've ever watched. And you don't even see an ounce of blood. You know what I mean? And it's just like such a creepy thing. So yeah, I don't know. That's why I really like, that's one thing that I like about the show. It's subtle and it's eerie and it's scary.
Yeah. Another thing that you could use for gaming is, I mentioned it earlier, the virtues and vices. But one thing I noticed a lot of what was happening was the destructive behavior, and they're totally going to get willpower back for doing some of this. You could tell. Actually, Marty, he sleeps around. He drinks a lot. For a while, he even finds God, which his wife comments like, "Yeah, I didn't really care for that phase. At least he was a good man, but he was boring then." But
yeah.
he justifies this all to himself as being like, he says this is what you do so you can go back to being a family man. This is the stuff that I have to do to decompress, to, in game terms, regain willpower so I can
Yeah.
carry on my day.
That's really awesome observation. Yeah, you put it great. Marty is such a like the character of Marty is that's really awesome. Like Marty, I love the line where they taught his wife says like Marty just never knew who he was. You know what I mean? And it was like, and it's being a husband, being a father, just living your life. Like Russ was going through his own. Here's the thing: Russ was more external with his pain, where Marty was more internalized his pain
Oh yeah.
and trying to run from it.
Now, some there's a lot of debate over like what Marty's biggest sin is throughout the show, but because like he does a lot of drinking, he sleeps around, yada yada yada. But my theory is it's his inattention to things at home. He makes all this excuses of what he needs. His wife really throws it back in his face at some point, but he's not noticing his family growing up. There's a scene where his daughters are playing with dolls and they basically stage a murder scene, and he just like, whatever. And then there's this scene flash forward where her daughter draws some lewd and violent images and crayons and shows all her friends because she wants to be popular. And like he does the bare minimum that a father has to do, but then kind of sweeps it under the rug again. The daughter grows up and kind of starts sleeping around herself, and there's a scene where he basically beats up her boyfriend
Oh,
because
the two guys. Yeah, they're overage
yeah,
too. Yeah.
yeah, but
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
to make my point, his father-in-law called him out on it too. Is just he's not paying enough attention to his family, and that's really what his biggest sin is.
Yeah, Marty.
He's selfish.
He's selfish. He's selfish, but and I'm empathetic to it a little bit too because he, not that I'm like Marty or whatever, but sometimes as a man or as a person, just a person period, we get caught up in ourselves, and a lot of times life goes by like that, dude. Life goes by like that, like a snap of the fingers, especially when you have children. And like you look at your 15-year-old kid and you remember like when he was 5 running around in a Power Ranger outfit, and it seems like yesterday. And there's times where as a father I'm hit with a sense of melancholy sometimes because I'm like, fuck, where did all that go? Like I can't
Yeah,
remember.
when did I become old?
Yeah, and I can't remember that. And it's like That show does a really good job of that, and I think he even though Marty did horrible things as a husband, you know what I mean, like how he cheating on his wife. You're somewhat kind of empathetic towards that, you know what I mean, like why he's like that. It's fucked up and selfish, and he's a very selfish fucking person when he was sitting in there. And I think he did have a moment. There's a scene where he had that where talking about the lewd drawings, and his wife is angry because he didn't react the way she wanted him to react. And he had that moment where he's talking about the past, the future seems to be behind him, and he has no idea where time went. And at first, I thought he was faking it. And then I realized, holy shit, he's really having a moment where he's showing his true self, and he's telling his wife like he doesn't know up and down, and he doesn't fucking know who he is. And I feel that at times too. I'm 42, you know what I mean? And I look at like the 30-year-old version of me or the 20-year-old version of me, and I see where did this change? You know what I mean? How did the fuck did I get here? And it's like this like roller coaster sometimes, that drop where you like your stomach goes up and you lose it, where you realize that like you're not in control of life. Life is in control of you, and you're just along for the fucking ride. And I think that that's really signified a lot in Marty. You don't see that in Rust. You see that. That's why Marty's my favorite character, to be honest, because you see like all this realism that is grounded in the story. And also one thing that I think that it does good, and I think they use Marty more for this because, like you said, Rust has been exposed. Rust has had his mind open. You know, you could say whether or not he's like,
The veil's been lifted.
yeah, the veil has been lifted. Marty's different in the fact that with Marty, you see how when people are exposed to horrific things, they see things in a different light. And what do I mean by that? You mentioned the murder scene. Okay, well, I have a different outlook on that, because there's also a scene where he, there's a scene where he sees like a circle drawn or whatever on his daughter's wall, shit like that. I think that what they're trying to show there is that Marty now will always see the murders and what he's witnessed in everything, and it'll ruin everything. You know what I mean? Like he's starting to see the signs in his daughter. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. He actually he gives at some point like later on in 2012 you find out that he's gone on to PI work. There's an exact moment, I'm not going to explain what it is, where he experiences something kind of grotesque, and he's just like, I have enough of this, I'm getting out. Because he's did his time, he's played by the rules. He's part of the old boys club back at the police station. He could have been a captain if he stayed in, but he decided to get out because he couldn't put himself through that anymore. And here comes his buddy from 10 years ago to drag him back into it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like with Marty, what I like about, and this ties to how you can use this in the game again, I think Marty shows really well as a player how you can take if your character is exposed to horror and have it affect your daily monotonous life, you know what I mean, in a subtle way. Because like dude, one of the saddest scenes in the show is a scene where, and to talk about the loss and not paying attention to your family and realizing where time went, and you see that like when like there's a distinct scene where they show his two daughters arguing over a crown that has like streamers on it in the front yard, and the oldest kid takes it from the youngest and throws it in the tree, and it gets stuck in a tree, and then the camera pans out and shows it still in the tree, but then goes back down and shows a pickup truck coming. You see the teenage daughter jumping out and the other girl who's a teenager, so to imply that like time went by and the kids grew up, you know. And then they cut to Marty's face when he's being interviewed, and you just see this sorrow. Like he, like at that age, at the old age in 2012, he realizes that like his life went by without him, you know what I mean, and that like he missed all that. And it's that's a horror too, him realizing that like, fuck dude, like everything that was important to me went by. And it's even more solidified when they have that scene where like Rust and Marty reconnect, and he's like, so what you been up to Marty? And Marty's like, oh, you know, kind of dated a girl for a little. Yeah, I go home, kind of dated a girl for a little bit. And they just show him like drinking a beer and eating a microwave dinner and just like surfing a dating site, and then just like sitting back in his chair and watching TV. And he's not doing anything because he's alone. You know what I mean? And he's by himself, and he doesn't have like, even when he goes and talks to his wife who got remarried, you know what I mean? And he asks about his kids. He doesn't know where his kids are at and what they're doing. And he feels like that disconnect. And it's sad. It's a real sad thing to show how, you know, even that case. Now, do I think even without the case that marriage would have worked out? Probably not. But I definitely think that, you know, that case ruined everyone's, well, not ruined, but impacted everyone's life that was in the story like that, you know? At least that's my opinion on it. It's definitely like, listen, and I think this is a good point to wrap it up. And I'm just going to kind of say this to anyone who's listening to this and who may not have watched the show or whatever. There's a reason why I always recommend it. And I don't recommend it because I'm not a fanboy type. I'm not a type of person where I feel like I need to like, you know, oh, you got to like this shit I like. You like this. And I'm just going to bug you until you fucking like it because, you know, whatever. No, I'm 42. I don't have the energy for that, dude. But like, when I say that the show is good, I mean, I'm not going to bug people to watch it. I'm just going to tell people it's fucking good. And if you're a World of Darkness or a horror role playing fan and you want to elevate your role playing or you want to elevate your story, watch this. Just watch this. There's a reason why this show has such a good reputation, and a lot of people. There's a reason why people joke about watching it for the 100th time this first season. You know what I mean? Like, because it's like an 8-hour movie. I look at like an 8-hour movie, bro. That's how I look at it. I look at like the timing, the rhythm, all that shit is just perfectly done. And to be honest with you, this show, the first season was so well done that they have a season 2 and 3. It's like in different stories, different actors have never met that high bar that first season set. Like no other season of that show has even gotten close to meeting it. Now, are they bad? I don't know. That's debatable. I'm never going to do a Brian Diaries about it. You know what I mean? But like that first show was so impactful. And like you said, a lot of people say it resuscitated the careers of Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, you know, when that came out. So I just say watch it. And then if you like it, you can thank us and and pay us. I'm joking, but no.
And cold brew.
And cold brew. There you go. Other than that, do you got anything else to add? I think we had a pretty good discussion about an awesome show.
Just make sure when you're watching it, that you're able to. I thought I was going to get through it. Okay.
No. I'll just say this. You're going to watch it more than once, and you're going to pick up shit that you didn't pick up before, and you're going to see little hints. It's going to make you feel nuts for a little bit. You're going to be like, what?
No, it's so good. Like, I haven't even gotten to the 3rd season yet because I just keep watching one again.
Yeah, I know, dude. It's so good. So many classic scenes. They're in Carcosa. You know, you're just like, what the fuck is Carcosa? You know what I mean? Like, you find out this unlayered history of like everything. Just it's so masterfully done. So check it out, watch it, drink cold brew, listen to Black Sabbath, and until then, man, thank you for joining me, Craig.
Come die with me, little priest.
Oh man, they're gonna see you in Carcosa. Until then, next time.
Oh, hello again, folks. I'd like to tell you about the Facebook group we run called White Wolf and Onyx Path RPGs, Gameplay and Media. Have you ever wished you could have an easy way to find gameplay videos and podcasts, or just media in general that deals with your favorite White Wolf role-playing games? Or have you ever wished you could find a forum to share gameplay that you have recorded? One that won't be drowned out by random posts and discussions, so that your media could get the attention you deserve. The group is specifically run with the sole intent of it being a one-stop shop for people to view or share media involving the games we all love. We take thorough steps to ensure the page does not become cluttered and is easy to traverse. The group is already immense and continuing to rapidly grow, with new media being shared every day. Stop on by. We hope to see you there.